Now, I want to read something here.
You want to tell us a story?
I want to tell you a story.
A happy story, yo.
A happy story, yo. Hopefully. The cabinet met yesterday. Okay? And in that cabinet meeting, there were some 4 new strangers who will now be sitting in the cabinet as well. I do not know what our laws say about people who are not cabinet ministers sitting in cabinet meetings. Session. Regular cabinet meetings. Anyway, that's not the point. So the cabinet met yesterday, and the dispatch from the cabinet office says the cabinet has approved the establishment of a special committee on pending bills. The pending bills verification committee will be tasked with the auditing of liabilities for the period between, get this, 2005 and 2022. How many years are those?
18.
2005
okay,
and
years.
2022.
17.
In a meeting chaired by President William Ruto at State House, the cabinet noted that pending bills remains a sticky issue. The national government pending bills since June 2005 to June 2022 stood at 481 billion shillings, while counties owe 159.9 billion shillings. The committee will consist of the Attorney General, the State Department for Roads, State Department for Public Works, the State Department for Housing and Urban Development, and the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority. Other members will be the EACC, the Law Society of Kenya, the Institute of Engineers of Kenya, Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, who will also be in this. They are to examine and submit interim reports to the Treasury Cabinet Secretary upon verification, and the government will honor the obligations in question. This move is aimed at establishing the integrity of all bills and cushioning small enterprises against liquidity inadequacies. Crucially, the committee will propose a mechanism to stop future pending bills. It's agreed the committee will present its final report within a year. That is June 2024. Okay? I want to read that paragraph again. The move is aimed at establishing integrity of all bills and cushioning small enterprises against liquidity inadequacies. We had a conversation with the Secretary General of the Association of Government Suppliers here. And he told us just a few stories off the top of his head of people that he has interacted with in his association, and others are not members of his association, but people who have supplied government in various levels. They either supplied services or goods to government. They have invoiced. They followed due process, even invoiced and got all their paperwork, but they have not received payment. And because of that, because of the delayed payment, the people that they had borrowed from to finance the jobs that they did came for their money. And they lost their property. We're only given a couple of stories here, but we have read, we have heard, we have talked to people, we've had very many stories of people who are small traders, who are owed billions of money by the government. By the government's own admission, by June last year, the national government owed 481 billion shillings to people. 481 billion is not just a figure. 481 billion is small traders. 481 billion is the employees of those small traders. 481 billion is the families of those small traders. These are human beings.
Okay.
481 billion is not just a number.
I have a few questions.
Yes.
All right. So, by the time you're going to do business or you're going to do a job for the government, whether it is at county level, whether it's at the national level, there is a bid, right?
Yep.
A bid in the form of maybe tenders, but there's a bid. And by the time this bid comes out, there's standard requirements that have been set. Is it not? If you then are selected to do this job, that means that you have met the threshold and in many cases surpassed. And if you have been seen to be the one that will do the most efficient job at a very good price, that is how you that are then selected.
Yep.
So far, so good?
So far, so good.
All right. You've met the requirements, so you've been given the job. In most cases with government, you are not given money to start the work. You do the work and then you're paid in arrears.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. You're also given a time frame within which this work ought to have been completed. Now, when the work is completed, you then submit an invoice. Okay?
Yeah.
This is the work that I have done at whatever level. It could be, it could be supply of stationery. It could be, constructing of a part of a road, a building, whatever. But then you supply an invoice. That invoice is received.
Yes.
It is receipted. It is documented. Should there be any issues with your invoice, it is returned to you and you're asked to go and rectify 1, 2, 3 before you bring it back to us. But upon acceptance of your invoice, that is a nod to say that everything is what? In order. And what you're waiting for is payment.
Yep.
Usually they will tell you 30, 45, 60, 90 days when your payment will come out, because it's government and there's a lot of protocol back and forth, signing here, blah, blah, impressed. Okay?
Yep.
But by the time you invoice, that is an acceptance that the job has been completed and there's satisfaction across board.
Yep.
Okay? Let's take a few steps before that. By the time this bid or this tender is made public, the assumption, or what should be the reality, is that there is a budget for this project.
Yep.
That they have looked and they have said, look, we need this to be done. We have this money available for it. And then we're going to ask for these bids. So the budget is available. It is not aspirational. It is not, okay, let's do this project and then let us go and look for the money. Right? The budget is there. Now, those are 3 processes that we've looked at. Maybe in reverse order, we say there's a tender that's been put up because there's budget available and there's this project that needs to be done, right?
Yes.
There are bids that have come out. People have put forth their bids. You have selected somebody based on their efficiency and their affordability when it comes to money then that you can pay. They're selected. They go ahead and they do their job, the job. In most cases, people will go and they will get a loan, or they will look for, project financing. That will happen. They will finish and then they will submit. Now, the third is that they will submit their invoice and they wait for money to be paid for them. Now, my question is, these pending bills that we're seeing of 650 billion shillings, why is this money not paid when it is inevitable that these 3 processes that I've talked about have taken place? Why? And if those 3 processes have taken place, why do you then need a committee that is going to sit for 365 days to verify a process which has already been verified by nature of the fact that 1, you've bid, 2, you've awarded, and 3, they have invoiced?
4, the money for it was available.
Exactly.
That's why
there was a budget.
That's why these processes took place.
Exactly. So what double verification is this that you need to do? Because this committee, they will not sit and you'll greet them in the air and say thank you for your service to government. No. You will sit them, you will pay them, you will sort out. More money will be spent for this committee to go through this verification process. So why do you need double verification on something that by nature was already a verification, 3-step verification process took place for you to get to this 650 billion. Why do you need another verification process to verify what has already been verified by virtue of the fact that they finished the project?
Because
Why?
Because
the Uhuru government left us with 500 billion pending bills.
Okay.
And we're not sure that these pending bills are really pending bills. We're also not sure that the work that is said to have been done and therefore invoice was actually done.
All right.
Though we know the invoice actually exists.
Okay.
And we just want to make sure that we're cleaning house. We're not just talking about Uhuru. We're going to go beyond Uhuru. And we're going to look at these things in great detail to make sure.
Kibaki days of 2005.
Yes. We want to make sure that all these things we keep talking about, money being lost, that we've actually gotten to the bottom of it. Okay? My suggestion to them, why don't you just go back to 1964? That now would be complete. You would have left no stone unturned.
The issue here, and that's why I repeated that statement, is to make sure that small and micro businesses do not continue suffering liquidity challenges.
Come on.
Look, if we just begin, let's not even go back to the Kibaki years. Let's not go to 2005 to 2012. Let's start with 2013, Jubilee 1. 2017, Jubilee 2, and now Kenya Kwanza 1. All right? If we look at that and look at the small, micro and small enterprises that actually went through the process of seeing a tender advertised, bidding for it, winning, supplying, invoicing, and not getting paid. If we look at that and the kind of suffering that they have undergone in the last, since 2013 to, let's even say 2013 to 2022, those 9 years, how many micro and small enterprises actually suffered liquidity to the level that they went under? Yesterday was World MSME Day. Yesterday, the cabinet was discussing the small bills that are owed by MSMEs. As we talk about developing our MSMEs, that's what we're discussing, and how much they are owed by government, to the tune of 480 billion shillings by national government, 160 billion shillings by county government. And you're now saying that despite everything else that happened, open your computer and go and search Uhuru order for paying pending bills and all those things, and just see the kind of stories that we saw. Uhuru saying pending bills are going to be paid. Pending bills, I order pending bills verification to happen. Pending bills verification happened in the previous administration, not once, not twice.
Yes.
The cabinet secretaries for the National Treasury went to Parliament and said, yes, we are verifying and we are actually allocating some money in the budget to clear pending bills. Like I said earlier, when the National Treasury is coming for a new budget cycle, they don't come and say, you know, you had approved for us to spend 3 trillion shillings. We only spent 2.5 trillion because we didn't pay the pending bills that we had assigned.
Okay. It's interesting that you mentioned that. And before I go to one of the first orders that was made by former President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2019, let's look at, you know, when you talk about MSMEs, you want to make it sound like some swanky office somewhere where there's somebody at the reception and roses on the till. No. We're talking about the people who've struggled and put forth a tender bid to supply newspapers,
water, desks,
paper,
cleaning services.
Thank you. Cleaning services. People who've then gone to the bank and mortgaged everything to be able to get this money, to then be able to do this job in the hopes that you will get paid. That money has never come in. Those are the folks that we're talking about. Yep. It's people who are supplying tomatoes and onions to your kitchens in the departments, at the counties, at the national government. It's people who are supplying pens, cups. It's when you had an event as ministry, somebody came and they did T-shirts and caps. That is what we're talking about.
Somebody catered for an event.
Absolutely.
Provided lunch, provided tea.
We're not talking about these big ticket items like building a road or buildings bridge, or whatever. No. We're talking about things like that, all right? So before you want to think that it's something huge and grandiose, it isn't. It is individuals, the mother, the father, the whomever, who said, I can do that, all right? 2019, June 1st, President Uhuru Kenyatta directed all ministries to settle all national government payments that do not have audit queries on or for the end of the current financial year, which closes on the 30th of June. 2019. This was in 2019. Okay.
So that's a 2018-2019 budget.
Exactly. What year are we in now?
2023, post-COVID.
Thank you very much.
This is before COVID.
Okay. That was in May. In December of the same year, Uhuru said, all of you cabinet secretaries, do not go on holiday until you have settled all pending bills of 51.2 billion shillings. Don't go for Christmas. Do not book that. Do not book that flight.
Down a memo which is signed.
Yes. Do not book that flight. You are not going anywhere until you pay these bills. That was before Christmas. Twice in 1 year now.
2019.
Okay.
Right.
Now, we are now going to settle all pending bills by... Sorry, let the thing open. It has refused to open.
Up there, it's there. That's the 2019 one.
That's the 2019 one. Okay, thank you.
Ministries, agencies, ignore.
Now, 2021, let's take some steps, some years forward.
Right.
Ministries, agencies, ignored Uhuru's order on pending bills. Whether they ignored or they didn't find the money, we are not quite sure. However, it was during the unveiling of the 2021-2022 budget in Parliament on the 10th of June. At that time, Treasury CS Ukuri Atani gave agencies until the end of that month, July, to settle all bills. He threatened to withhold funds to agencies and county governments that defy the directive. So they've been playing this cat and mouse game, at least for the last 2 years, until 2021, I beg your pardon. And they were still, issuing out threats. Pay by. If you do not pay,
if you don't pay,
such and such
you're
will happen.
not going on holiday.
Now, this
you
one
will not go for Christmas. You work until you pay.
That was in 2019.
And if you don't pay in 2021, we're being told now, if you don't pay, by the way,
we will not give you money at the counties. Okay?
Right.
Now, the one I remember, even without having to go into the archives, 2021 September. 2021 June, Madaraka Day. Uhuru Kenyatta stood on the podium and he said, by October 31st, all pending bills must be paid. October 31st. What is today?
Today is the 28th of June, 2023.
Thank you very much. Those pending bills were not paid. So I don't know if now...
They increased, actually.
Yep.
They went higher than that. The debt for ministries and departments at that time excluded 100 billion shillings. So they were looking at around that 505 billion shillings, even at that point, conclusively, national government and county government.
Finish that statement.
Right? This
the
one
debt
here.
For the ministries?
The debt for the ministries and departments excluded 100.15 billion that was considered as ineligible after the verification of pending bills. So this is my issue with this current committee today. It has already been done. Audit queries have taken place
more than once.
More than once. Verification has taken place more than once. You know what the numbers are.
May I add to it?
Yeah.
These things have been audited also.
Thank you. It's already been done.
The Auditor General has gone through these things with a tooth comb.
Yep.
What we get in the media snippets of what they have done, but it's thorough, it's detailed. Even questionable invoicing, they've come up, they have told us. So the question one asks is, so what exactly is this committee going to do?
That is what I'm asking. What exactly will happen over the next 1 year?
And this thing they're going to do, it's going to take place in a year. What is it?
And allow me to add something to that. You see this verification that's taking place? You see this shouting that we've been doing about pay pending bills?
Yep.
2019 pay, 2020 pay, 2021 pay. Remember, COVID came 2020, ate up a chunk of our time till 2022. And then came 2023, pending bills, pay, don't pay, ignore, don't ignore. Government was still issuing tenders for people to do work.
Yep.
Those people who did that work in this time are adding to this list of pending bills.
Which means
even this fancy committee that's going to sit for 365 days
have
as
another
they are
pending
working,
bill.
there's still more pending. Even to pay them will be a pending bill.
the question that was asked earlier by Eric, which to me is germane to this issue, is, and do you actually tailored and fitted in nicely, it was a good patchwork. How do you explain a situation where you have a process and the process exists because it has been budgeted for, which means money has been put aside for it? That there are people who are claiming and seeking to have their bill settled. That's why it's pending. It's a bill that hasn't been paid. Eric's question, where did the money go? Because it was budgeted for. It existed. And why we asking the question is, no one is telling us the money wasn't paid, but it's sitting, it's nestled here. It's not there,
It's
clean,
not in a suspense
clear.
account somewhere because they didn't find
It's
it to
not
pay to.
there.
Exactly.
So where is it?
And even compounding that a little bit more is that in every document that you will have, this is even basic accounting.
Yep.
In every document that you will have, it is related to a project. It's a project account, is it not?
It is.
Yes. So in the document, you look at the cost of the project and you will know that it was for 1, 2, 3, supply of something, something, something. You can see the thing that was supplied. You can see it.
Or if it was consumed,
there's
at least a receipt that these things were received.
You can't actually bill them. You can't send your invoice if you don't have those details.
Thank you. So
and somebody
the
has
job was
signed to confirm
it.
receipt.
Yes.
And Eric, in government, we know Yesterday we had an example here. We know in the receipt of those things, it is not one signature.
No.
It is a trail.
A multiplicity.
And it's all in writing.
It's all in writing.
Atumelete.
No. You sign it. So it was delivered, it was done.
There's a chain of command. It's not, it moves up. If you work for government, you'll know. Files move. There's where they start. They go to the next, it's known, they go to the next stage. So if you've done anything in the government, you ask, where exactly is this file? Because it follows a process.
Yep.
Now, by the time it becomes a pending bill, nothing has gone through those processes.
A lot. And just like you're saying, Ndu, by the time we go to tendering, a lot has happened before this.
Yes.
Let's look at this mosquito thingy majiki that we are talking about now with the Global Fund, right? And we're told by Dr. Andrew Mulwa about that entire process. There's a work plan that's developed. There's a development plan that's done. There's a procurement plan that's done. All these things are done at ministry level. Then they're taken to the PS. The PS forwards to the Treasury. The Treasury has a conversation with the donor. They look at the documentation and they say, fine, take it to tender. They give it to KEMSA. KEMSA then prepares the tender documents.
Based on all these, the aforementioned details.
Yes. And it
So
all
everything
began
is in tandem.
with the
Yes.
donor saying, this is the amount of money that I have.
Yes.
Okay? So this is the basics of project. It starts with planning, you budget for it, you finance it, you execute it.
Yes.
So there is planning that takes place, and this is what happens in the budget making process. This cycle that begins in November, it is when planning is taking place and budgeting. And those state departments going to KICC and sitting before the National Treasury and saying, these are our plans for the next financial year. This is how much it would cost. And that's why we will be requesting you to finance us to the tune of this much. The National Treasury looks at it and amends. It goes to Parliament. Parliament looks at the figures and Parliament then allocates and says, for that project of supplying water to this particular institution, we are allocating 20 million shillings. That is passed, it becomes an appropriation bill, right? It is signed into law, an appropriation act. The money has been assigned to the supply of water to that office.
The money exists for paying this vendor.
There. Then there's somebody in that office who has the authority to incur expenditure. Who is the originator of the whole plan from the very beginning. Now they look at it and they say, all right, I have been allocated X amount of money for water. These are the specifications for the water. Then now I can afford 20 dozen bottles of water. Let's go to tender for 20 dozen bottles of water. Because I am sure I have the authority to purchase 20 dozen bottles of water. They tender. They identify supplier. Supplier brings 20 dozen bottles of water. Wanakonywa, wanaoga nayo, whatever they do, pick a chai, whatever. They spend 20 dozen bottles of water. This person with the authority to incur expenditure, why do they not sign for the money to be paid? If there's any verification that needs to happen, it's just going back and asking who was supposed to incur expenditure. Why did they not incur expenditure? Don't start saying, is this bill real or not?
If the money intended for this was expenditured, yes, because for
How
money,
was it
yes,
How was it expenditured?
this same person who has the authority, if money leaves, they have given authority.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
what did they give authority for?
This is it. And we can just look, it's very simple to me. This now fancy committee for sitting for 1 year to verify all of these things is another waste of time, and you're putting people into more distress and turmoil, not paying them money that is due for a job that they did. It has already been verified. I'm sorry. By the time it is a bill, if you sit in a restaurant today and somebody brings you a bill, what does that mean? You have consumed.
Yes.
There's nothing like, oh, let me go and... No, actually, you know what needs to happen?
Let me confirm that you actually supplied me with the food.
That you brought me food to this table. Are you kidding? And you have eaten and you don't belly full.
You know the process is detailed. They give you a menu.
Yes.
So that you can choose
select what you want
to eat and what you can afford to pay for.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And you order, it comes to you, you consume, and then you want us to now come and start asking which waiter served, where was the bill in the kitchen, who did you see seeing me eat?
And now you're actually now bringing in other people. Oh, this is a person who's the chairman of the Potato Suppliers Association of Kenya to come and see whether the potatoes that you claim to have eaten is actually supplied in this country. Why will we have engineers in this committee?
Doing
Why
what?
do we have lawyers in this committee? To
What?
do what?
To do what?
This is just another window dressing exercise, and we're saying it directly straight up here to you, government. Oh yes, cabinet, you met yesterday. Yet, cabinet, you created this committee. Stop playing with people's lives. These are people with families. These are people's livelihoods, and these are people are owed by government. Go back and find out who did not pay, where did their money go to. Deal with those ones. But for crying out loud,
Pay these people.
pay people who supplied you.
Come on. I have a question, another question.
Ask.
Pending bills, were they allocated some kind of money during this budget that has just been read?
This one.
Eh.
Every budget, my friend, has an allocation. Not only budget, supplementary budget. Supplementary budget 1 of 2023, this year, submitted by Professor Jogona Dongo,
Right.
had some 60 billion shillings to go towards paying pending bills.
Thank you very much.
That money has been expended.
Okay. However, if money was set aside in this budget that has just been read for the year 2023 to 2024, and now you've instituted a committee that is going to do some kind of, audit verification, bills verification, etc., etc., where then will that allocation go?
What they're saying is that within this 1 year, they are verifying and they're paying, verifying, paying, verifying, paying, verifying, paying. By June next year, the final report will be, this is what we have done.
No.
And these are the recommendations going forward.
Okay.
Okay?
I have a recommendation that you don't even need a year to be able to figure out. Here's the recommendation. By the time you have planned and budgeted, and then you have invited bids, and you then award a bid, and then the person does the job, they finish and present an invoice. My recommendation would be pay them. And then you don't have to do this whole circus of activities and verification and payment, and then paying some other folks to come and sit around round tables every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday of the week and get paid hefty allowances to do this thing. That's my recommendation. This recommendation that they're going to give after 1 year is actually neither here nor there. Just do the thing that a process requires. Follow those steps, and guess what? You'll be golden, and you don't have to do this. The money that has been allocated to these projects, guess what? Imagine a world where money that has been allocated to a project is actually paid to all the elements of that project. Imagine, it's like walking on rainbows and
the
eating
project
gold
is
dust.
executed as per design.
It's like you're living in heaven. You wouldn't have to start making recommendations and sound philosophical. You just have to do the thing and go through the processes, and then we move. What are we doing?
Sometimes, who wrote the book Cry My Beloved Country? Alan Patton.
Alan Patton.
Yes.
Yeah. Know the movie.
No. Whenever people talk about the power that the Constitution gives the citizenry of this country, it's mere words. I doubt if it has actually sunk or it's been fully understood what it is that is meant by people having the power. You see, the things that we speak of now as simply going awry are a culmination of things that have been happening with successive governments. And even when you have governments where you have the president trying as much as he possibly can to remove some of the rot that has been part and parcel of the system. As the saying goes in Kenya, grand corruption fights back. I would say grandly. But it fights back because it's become a way of life, an acceptable way of life. But we accompany it with the hypocrisy of declaring and denouncing it in public while participating in it in our own little way. But the things that we do are excusable because we do them and they're not as big or as grand as what some other people are doing. But when you look at the words that are uttered, the sheer volume of the words that are uttered in defense and in compliance with supporting the downtrodden we have in society, those words alone, if they could be monetized, would have removed all these social issues that we speak about in the country. But what we see is that the more words are uttered, the worse the plight of our citizenry gets. It's not as though anything improves. And yet, there's always one plan or another, ostensibly, to help remove our people from the plight they're in. And yet, to a casual observer, that plight worsens. It does not, it's not as though you find, whew, there's relief here.
Yeah.
No, it worsens. With every scheme, which sounds good, you pause, take a deep breath. When you exhale, you suddenly find the situation that was previously there, even with the promise, has gotten worse. How do we get out of this, moribund? How do we get out of this situation? This hole that seems to be getting deeper and deeper, and it's deeper. And we're in the hole, and some people keep insisting on digging it more, and we are all getting into it deeper and deeper and deeper. What do we need to do here?
These are games.
I think it is.
You know, Ndu, just remind us again. You know, when we talk about suppliers, there are people who think, all right, the big guy who got the big contract to do the big road, the big guy who got the big contract to do the non-existent stadia, all right? There are those ones, fine.
Yeah.
But then, a majority, just like were given figures. Yesterday, I was interviewing the principal secretary for MSMEs on KTN. And she said, this is the Ministry of MSMEs. 98% of the businesses that you see in this country are MSMEs. A vast majority of those MSMEs are actually in the micro. Those micro, the ones that make below 5 million shillings annual turnover, those are many. The small ones, they are many. These are the ones that supply government. Like you said, supplying those basic things, supplying tea, supplying, there's a meeting somewhere and you're supplying that meeting. There's...
And you know it's not complete.
Water in offices.
But look at it like this. Break it down. It is not even complete. When you look at the tea being served in government offices, for example, you have one person who's been given the tender to supply milk.
Yep.
You have one person being given the tender to supply sugar. You have somebody who's bringing tea leaves or tea bags. Those are 3 different people. And it is a faceless Kenyan.
Yep.
That's the truth. It is somebody who said, you know what, let me try my hand at this. And then they do the due diligence. They pay the 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 shillings that a tender requires you to do. You do that, you pay. Meanwhile, their offices are receiving hundreds of thousands of shillings in tender fees.
Tea.
Yes, tender fees. All right? This happens. These are the people. How much is the money that this is for me the painful thing. How much is the money that we are talking about that these people are being owed? If it is a lot, the person who's supplying milk on a monthly basis or supplied hats for an event, T-shirts for some conference, the pens that you did your thing for whatever department was...
Labeled pens, branded pens,
the
branded T-shirts, branded coffees. You see them in all these meetings.
Yeah.
And you see, it's a big meeting, it's a presidential event. So Kenya is hosting this big... Somebody supplied all those small things that you're seeing. Banners there. There's somebody who just did the stage and the lighting. Somebody who's just done the supply of water for the delegates.
Exactly.
Somebody who just printed the lanyards and the name badges
for the conference. He's waiting for their money. Small,
and they're waiting for their money.
Do you know how much we are being told the profits that these people are making on top of the money that they went and took loans to supply? 100,000 shillings, 50,000 shillings, 20,000 shillings is the money that they're looking for on top of what they paid. How many people's lives have you plummeted into aggravating poverty because they took a facility to supply government, whether it was at county level, whether it was at national level, then you don't pay them. You don't pay them. They go into debt. Auctioneers are brought for them. Somebody in Moranga died. Another one killed himself because he's gone into a depression because government has not paid him. This is not fairy tales. It's not folklore. This is actual stuff that's happening to people. You put them into debt. They're paying loans that they didn't have to. They did not have to take. They took them because they knew that you were going to pay them after a period of time. These are the people that we're talking about, that you want to now put into another 365 days of agony. And then even that, it is not guaranteed because you will come up with some story about how they cannot or should not be paid. For somebody to realize a 25,000 shilling profit on top of hundreds of thousands of shillings that they borrowed to do a job, and you finish, you've as we say in my language, you've eaten, you've cleaned your mouth. Then now to pay the person now is a problem. A teeth-pulling exercise. It is those Kenyans that we're talking about. Not even the ones, like you say, who are building the big buildings, but even them, how about a case for them as well?
They have also
They have also paid. They have also taken facilities.
If they have delivered, they
are
ought
owed.
to be paid.
They should be paid.
If they have delivered, they ought to be paid. And there are institutions in every government. There's levels and layers of verification, of authentication, and this happens. Fine. If you do not trust your people, government is a going concern. Let's remind the cabinet that, okay? Government lives in perpetuity. The government of the Republic of Kenya is not dependent on who's in office.
Come on.
The government of the Republic of Kenya is an entity that is continuous
And it
in
moves.
existence.
And it will outlive every president who is currently
It's the
there,
system.
and every future president.
future
It will
presidents.
outlive all of them.
As far as we are concerned, the government of the Republic of Kenya has conducted a verification exercise
It's already
on
done.
pending bills.
It's
It
already
has.
done.
There are various reports that are there. If you don't trust those various reports, why should we trust yours?
You. Exactly. And I want to disabuse us of this notion, because there's some people who are saying, oh, the issue might be because your documents were not complete, your invoice did not have this. It would not be pending if your documentation had a problem. By the time it is a pending bill, they have gone through it.
You have submitted
and
everything.
You've submitted everything.
You're waiting
and
to
they
be
have
paid.
That's why it's pending. Pending by definition means it is waiting. It is waiting for payment. If your documentation had an issue, they would not accept it and put it in that place now when it becomes a pending bill. It would be somewhere else. And that is why audit queries have already been done. Remember what we said, 100.15 billion shillings was moved aside in 2021 because there were audit queries. And they said, hey, there's something here. And remember, we think that an audit query is just money. No, audit query always has something to do with an invoice. Maybe it doesn't have the proper date. Maybe it was not accompanied by
certain process.
a delivery. Something didn't happen. All of those are audit queries. It's not just about money minus 5.
Or there was signed for delivery and there was no delivery.
All of those
Do you
are
know why
audit
they're
queries.
audit queries? Every government process is detailed. You don't get into engagement with the government if you don't understand the process.
Neither can Siti be sleeping in his house as the director of whatever, and then Ndu calls him and say, oh, by the way, boss, I delivered. Then Siti said, oh, you delivered? Okay, no problem. No.
Nitakutumia pesa.
Akuna, it is documented and not one person signs. So, sorry, by the time karaoke, it is a bill pending, it has been verified. This business that they're doing with this committee is a waste of time. It is aggravation of an already painful situation for many Kenyans. And I'm going to even ask the question, how many more Kenyans do you want to kill themselves from depression because you've not paid them so that they can realize 25,000 shillings?
Because this time now we are doing it better. Okay?
Come
so what
on.
we've decided, we're also going to bring in the private sector and professional associations, the Law Society of Kenya, the Engineers of Kenya, the Institute of Certified Public, so that they can also come here and we can verify these bills together.
My mother used to
Absolute nonsense.
My mother used to say, if you've not taken a bath and you want to go and wear clean clothes, it still remains that you have not taken a bath. If you want to go and bring all the clean people, if you like, go and bring audit query people from London, it still remains the same thing, that there's something that you're trying to stop from happening that you need to fix. And in this case, fixing it is paying Kenyans the money that you owe them.
Why go through this very elaborate charade when we know that there are government departments and government units who do this very thing? That's what they exist for.
Yeah.
Now, you want to say that when you set this committee and you bring all these people plus their cousins,
Minus the Auditor General.
yes, you suddenly are going to provide us with
That
a
you didn't know
better,
before.
a better outcome than the one which has been provided by people whose sole mandate in government is to do this thing that you're claiming you want to do. This very same thing.
Exactly. What did you say? If you need to come and verify again, the question is then why should Kenyans believe you?
Actually, the question...
We have a report. We have reports. That report that said there's 100 billion shillings here that we're not going to pay first. We're first going to pay all these others as we sort out this. So if that report exists, why don't you rely on that report?
Yes.
Why are we going to rely on this
on another report?
Why? And this is not about, it is this handshake government, or it is now Kenya Kwanza, it is Azimio. This is not even about that. we are saying, the government itself is saying, we are going all the way back to 2005. So let's go all the way back to 2005. All these characters who are in government, in national leadership today, have come across government at one time or another since 2005.
Since that is the
all
point.
of them.
Yes.
The president was a minister, was a deputy president. The attorney general was an MP, was a speaker of the National Assembly. All these people we're talking about, the leaders of Jubilee, the leaders of ODM, the leaders of Wiper were there. They were vice president, they were prime minister, they were brother to the president. They were there. So it's not about politics. It's about people's livelihoods. And let's remember, it is micro enterprises. It is small businesses that they did something. They supplied government. Government went to Parliament and sought approval for a budget. Parliament created a budget, allocated money for a certain project. You went ahead and tendered for that project. Somebody supplied you. You did not pay them. You come back to Parliament and say, oh, by the way, give me money. You see, last year I didn't pay that guy.
Let me pay that guy.
Give me money so that I can pay that guy. What are you talking about? So even as all these people are here, those who are in Parliament, Kina Rigathi Gachagua, they have questions to answer. Why were you approving budgets that have pending bills and
Eric,
not questioning?
Eric, when we had these supplementary budgets in the Uhuru government, among the things we were doing was to sort out these very same bills.
Same stories.
Supplementary budget means money is allocated. Okay, so again, Eric's question, where did the money go to?
Where did the money go? And
because
that's the question nobody is asking.
The debts are the constant. The money which has been allocated keeps evaporating.
Then, you know what? Actually, you know, as I think about it.
This is a grand theft scheme.
It is. That's what I was just going to say. It's robbery. In fact, with violence. Because people are dying. You know what? Because you have budgeted. CS Dongo just read another budget. There is an allocation for payment of pending bills in this budget.
Yes, there is.
Last year, there was an allocation for pending bills in the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Yes.
There was an allocation.
Before that as well. And the year before that as well.
Now, mind you, this is apart from the money that each project had already budgeted for these things that we're talking about. Because if you want to do the due diligence, go to each department. They'll say, yes, we needed newspaper, we needed milk, we needed tea, blah, 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 all of these things. They gave it to somebody. This is apart from that money. The very simple question, which people should be called to. In fact, that committee should not be asking whether these bills are to be verified. They should be asking, where did the money go?
AIE holders are the ones that should be answering questions.
Come on.
An AIE holder, so you authorized procurement. Why didn't you pay?
Why didn't you pay? Simple question.
First of all, the people who are owed money, are they also going to bring them in to tell us that they're
one
owed
by
money?
one?
You know why I'm asking this question? There's a likelihood that some people are being paid twice or thrice.
Like I said, the supplementary budgets that we've had this year, we have just the third supplementary budget has been passed, okay? They have money for pending bills. Who's getting paid? How have their bills been verified? Are they going through this process of verification, or have they just passed did they pass go? And collected
They collected 200 twice.
They collected. Not twice, even thrice.
Because the first supplementary budget has some 60 billion shillings to go towards paying pending bills. That money, when we are closing the financial year on Friday, is not going to come back at, oh, by the way, there was no absorption of these monies.
No, it's not there.
It's gone.
So where did it go?
Who's been paid? And how come Mamanjeri, who supplied pens to a conference, is not getting paid?
And yet other people have been paid.
Yeah. How did you select that person that you've paid and not Mamanjeri?
You know, the question I have to ask is, what is the relevance of a cabinet? But that's a discussion for another day.
That's a big one, actually.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.